gonna go ahead and call our meeting to order. I think we have a quorum in place at this time, and you guys have had the minutes emailed to you, is that correct? So I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the minutes, or if you wanna make adjustments before the motion, that's fine as well. Anybody have any changes to the minutes that they wanted to make? Any corrections? I didn't realize we had talked that much, to be honest with you. There's a lot of notes, a lot of minutes.
There's a lot of minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so I still need a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
Got the motion to approve the minutes, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any other input? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes are approved. You guys have a agenda in front of you. You should have received Parks and Recreation project updates in your email this time. Thank you guys for doing that. I thought it looked really good. I will give just a minute or two to talk about if you have any questions concerning the updates, the reports we used to get. I'm hoping we can do them online and then ask questions about them if you have any. Does anybody? I did have one question. The beautification day, trail day,
Yes.
9:14 to 10:12. Where do you meet?
So our plan, and we'll send this out in a separate email as well, because we're still kind of playing with the dates. It'll either be the 14th or the 21st of September.
Oh, okay.
That one, Rotary was originally gonna help us on the 21st, but there's a lot of prep we have to do on our end first, and so we asked them to do October 5th. So we'll do the 14th or 21st. Our plan right now is to have everyone park at either the Right Step Daycare, G&G Lock, or that Family Dollar, and we're kind of gonna start at the Zion Hill Cemetery, because then we can walk either way onto that section of the trail. There's quite a bit of cleanup. There's actually on that section from Park Street headed north, where Rotary's gonna be repairing that little footbridge. It's really cool. There's a bunch of pottery actually from the really early 1900s. Turns out that used to be kind of a trash dump. And stuff is washed up with the trail, so we're working on doing some sort of surface collection day with a local archaeologist that we'd love for y'all to help with. And then also we have trash and limbs that need to come out and things like that. So we can park all around, but then essentially we're gonna meet at the Zion Hill Cemetery, but we'll email that out as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Any other questions? Are we getting volleyball coaches? You said you needed volleyball coaches?
We need one more in our younger age division, which hasn't made in over 4 years, which is pretty exciting.
Okay.
About 3 more, so we're on the lookout, but we have a lot of parents starting to call up here and say, okay, I'll go ahead and coach, so
Okay, cool.
almost there.
All right. If there's no other questions about the reports, let's move on to discuss Parks and Recreation budget and long-term planning, which I think is where the meat of what we're going to discuss will be. The idea here, guys, is to shorten up the agenda, but maybe have points where we can have a greater discussion and maybe make decisions that'll be impactful. And so today, I think we're going to review I think we're going to go over your report here, right? The budget and long-term planning update, and then we'll go from there. Or do you guys need that, or you've already seen it? I mean, do you need to go over this? Anybody? Everybody's quiet. Y'all are quiet today.
See, I had a few changes I'm happy to go through if y'all need it.
Yeah. I think you should, especially if there are changes.
So really, and a lot of this, and it's up on the screen as well, most of this y'all have already seen, as far as what was requested for the fiscal year 24-25 budget, which will go into effect October 1st. City Council has met several times. They met last Tuesday at the Recreation Center. So the only big change from our last Parks Board meeting was that the full-time recreation assistant, 2 part-time recreation assistants, and full-time parks labor positions did not make the cut, unfortunately.
No.
They did not.
Okay.
So we originally requested 2 part-times and 1 full-time for rec, and then 2 full-time laborers for parks. What was in the draft was a full-time rec assistant and a one full-time parks laborer. So we were pretty excited about that, but those 2 positions did get removed at the last round of budget cuts. So there's no additional staffing in there for Parks and Rec this year. City Council will meet again September 10th and September 17th to officially talk about the proposed budget, do any last minute changes, including tax rates, anything like that.
thought there was a picture in the reporting we got that said that the staff had grown.
In the which part?
The report, the email we got,
That was from filling staff positions that have been open. Those were already like our positions that
Oh,
we had,
okay.
but we had to fill quite a few.
okay,
Yeah, we had, poor Tommy's had a rough run of it. We've had some parks laborers leave, part-timers leave, which is the nature of, you know, kind of the job, but we've
Sure.
been filling those back, which has been good.
Operators leaving.
Yeah, operators leaving, things like that. So those are the big changes on there. The capital improvement plan has not changed since the last time y'all saw this. Nothing was removed at the last round of budget cuts. So as of right now, this CIP, which of course is our capital improvement plan, these are the annual expenditures or multi-year projects, that span a few years, and we budget some money in each year. So those items are still in there as of right now. And then of course we have all the bond information that we can go through. Unless y'all have any questions, I mean, I wanted to pause in case we had any questions about the actual,
yeah, I didn't have any questions about the CIP, anybody?
Mm-mm.
Okay, but I am interested in what we're about to talk about, the general obligation bond roadmap. Did you create that?
I did not.
Okay,
No, that was created by, I think Larissa Philpott, our NEDCO director, actually created this when we first went through it.
right,
But this is essentially on our city website, this was in your PowerPoint last time as well. It shows what is split up among all the propositions that were passed in the bond. Ours are Proposition E, for the Parks and Recreation, and then there's also, a cemetery facility one, which is, Proposition D, that does kind of fall under this board, but also falls under the cemetery board, so I'm happy to talk about that with y'all if you'd
Sure.
like to. But really today, we kind of put more information on the Parks and Recreation. So in tranche one, we had playgrounds for McCrimmon Park, Mill Pond Park, and Lake Nacogdoches West. I showed this to y'all last time as well.
Is that in here?
next
Okay.
page, yeah.
So tranche one, I got it. Yeah, so those are the ones that were approved by council in May. And then tranche two, those are the ones that we had, budgeted for tranche two, which should be sold off if everything stays on schedule in May of 2026.
These
Um,
aren't approved yet.
Correct.
Okay.
That is essentially what the Capital Needs Advisory Committee suggested. So we kind of have them lined out in there, it matches up dollar-wise. So that was initially our plan, and of course, we'll talk about that today as well.
Okay,
And we also prepared some more information as far as pavilion rentals, what each of these facilities currently has. I'm happy to go through that as we have our discussion.
sure. Yeah, why don't we talk about, well, cause I think use is gonna be an issue for some of us, that you know, in the idea that, a park could have so little use that it not need a restroom. You know, I tend to lean towards thinking that if it's got a playground or any kind of a basketball court or anything in the park that, people are gonna spend time at or be active at, that there should be a restroom in the park. But I don't know how everybody else feels. And then the question becomes, if that's the case, does it have to be the $300,000 restroom? You know, could it be the less expensive restroom? How does everybody feel about that?
I think if you're gonna have a park, you have to have a restroom. Because it's a catch-22. I mean, if no restroom, I'm not going to that park. Grandma's not gonna
Yeah.
take the grandkids to the park without a restroom, you know, and so, but I'm on your page. Does it have to be a $300,000
Yeah.
restroom?
Well, I'm probably the only one, but, I don't think these parks need restrooms. If you, you know, you can always put a porta potty out there, which is what typically a lot of parks will just have a, you know, a temporary restroom, which is, I think is good enough. Certainly good enough for the Mill Pond, which doesn't see a lot of activity anyway. But I'm not a big believer in these big $250,000 restrooms, in these parks, unless it's one of our parks that sees a lot of people. Like Pecan Park sees a lot of people. I get that. And even Pioneer Park, I can get that, but some of these just don't see the numbers to justify a $250,000 bathroom. It just doesn't make sense to me. It just seems like we're getting that money anyway, right? Because that's been approved by the voters, so it's happening. So surely we have other places to put that money.
Yeah, I'm hoping we could find a way to save some money and do something that we feel, or recommend something that we feel is more in line with what we're trying to get done here than big fancy restrooms. But at the same time, yeah, but we probably disagree on that. I get the porta potty thing, but I just think something permanent makes
Yeah.
more sense.
If you'd have gone to Bonita for Blueberry Festival, you would say, oh, hell no, no porta potties. It was bad. I mean,
So-
and it's the, you know, the beast of the porta potty. Sometimes it's a good experience, but more than often, it's not, especially when there's only one, and the men have to share it, the women have to share it with the men.
You have 3
And then
months at
there's-
90, you have
and
3
then-
months at 95 or 100 degrees, they're rough.
And then you're sharing it also with the homeless, which,
That's true. So I asked, could we consider looking at, because when we originally talked about this, we priced out a prefab restroom and a custom design restroom like we see out here. And the pricing came in incredibly similar, and that's why we built the fancy thing. But if we're going to downsize, going through engineering and all the things that are required, it might be, I'm thinking there might be some savings in small restrooms. You're not gonna agree with me. I already told
You're
you
not
that.
gonna love the numbers that I have to show you. Let me
So
actually.
I had asked the city to look into what would a smaller restroom cost, prefab.
Yeah, and this, of course, this is us, we went back and looked at some of the companies that, I think that the Parks Board looked at originally when we were looking at building these restrooms and pulled updated numbers.
I would like to have the names of those companies. too.
Sure. I can email them to you, I don't know
Okay.
them offhand. But we've looked at, I think 3 different ones, and
Okay.
all of their restrooms are very similar price. So we looked at a prefab single, the original cost, we kind of spec'd it out with what we currently have in these restrooms as far as stainless steel toilets, which help with vandalism, longevity, adult size changing tables for those with bigger kiddos with disabilities, you know, with some of the concrete flooring, metal roofs, things like that, that would, hopefully we could build these restrooms and never ever have to talk about them again. So we looked at that prefab single, the base price was about $122,000. They wouldn't give us an exact price on the site design and prep, because of course that's a building that they're gonna bring to us and plop down, but they have to have something to set it on. So you still have to do the foundation, you still have to do dirt work, all the plumbing, have a contractor on site to supervise the installation, things like that. So they estimated between $50,000 to $75,000 for the site design. And so Carly took a middle number, I think we did 65.
62, I think.
Yeah, 62,000. So essentially that prefab single would be about $184,000. And that's our rough estimate. This is not an official bid from any company. Same thing with the prefab double, was $234,000 as a base price. With that same $62,000 site design prep that we're guesstimating, you end up with about $296,000 for those. And then of course our custom build, those are our numbers that we've used on these last 4 restrooms we already did, which the 260 was using original sites we have. Some of these we build them, or actually all the ones we have, we built to match any existing foundations. And so all of that is included with that 260 price. And I think the other option was getting a local architect. We worked with Army Curtis for the existing one, getting him to take his restroom and essentially scale it down. That's one we don't exactly have a price on. I assume it would be cheaper to build, to build. I don't know what his design cost would be to essentially take that, make new scaled down drawings, and then us bid those out. So that last one is really kind of an unknown cost. I assume it would be less than 260,
Sure.
but I don't know.
Single means one restroom, or does it mean,
One restroom.
okay,
Yeah, one stall, essentially.
so 2 restrooms, 1 stall?
So it'd just be one restroom that you walk in and has
Okay.
a changing table, a toilet, a urinal, and a sink.
Gotcha.
But
And then there's a plumbing chase in the back.
That'd be a men's and a women's, 2
No.
separate,
No,
That
just one.
one's not.
really.
Yes. And there are some, that's when you see the prefab double, where
Right.
it's split into men's and women's. And then if it's already split, believe it or not, if it's already split into men's and women's, It's a little easier to get 2 stalls because they're already splitting the building in half. So
Yeah.
it's easier to make stalls inside those.
Why, it's like, I'm sorry, coming. Why is it as expensive to build a 1,600 square foot custom house as it is to build a bathroom?
Cause you're paying for it instead of the city?
Yeah.
That's the difference right there.
I mean, that's my $1 million question.
So a lot of the changing table we've provided, mainly because we know that our playgrounds are filled with children. And so
That's true.
So the parents are coming with kiddos. We did the adult size changing tables specifically because quite a few families and the Mayor's Committee on People with Disabilities had requested it and talked about it, because we have some kiddos, specifically one family came to us and said, you know, our daughter, you know, has developmental disabilities. We still need to use the changing table, but a standard child size one will not hold her, so we can't come to the parks, things like that. So that's why we kind of went with that as a standard. As far as the cost, a lot of these things, they're spec'd out with concrete walls, epoxy floors, you know, everything is stainless steel, so that way it's much, much harder to break. And so I don't know if,
Yeah.
a lot of that, those things are more expensive.
I remember the first time on a different deal, we had to buy a public playground. I couldn't believe how much a playground could cost. You know, it's always more expensive.
Like down the line here is 260 times 5 here, okay? Why, in negotiation or anything, you can't go 260, 240, 230, just because of the additional with one contractor?
And that's what we did with the 4 we did. Originally, when we bid these out, I don't have the exact numbers, but I can get them to y'all. These restrooms, when we try to do them one at a time, were a lot more expensive than 260. 260 is what we got it down to by using one contractor, bid all 4 of them at the same time, so that way they came in, laid all 4 foundations, and that way they just had to have their guys.
What 4 do we have right now?
We have them at,
Festival, Pecan, Maroni, and Sports Place.
and we have it up on the screen too. And then Lake Nac West has 2 restrooms that one got hit by a tree not that long ago, so we're working with our insurance to get that one fixed. And so the bottom one at West and the restroom at Lake Nac East, we're currently in the midst of rehabbing. So those will be fixed, and then the top one at Lake Nac West will have to be rebuilt.
So the top Lake Mac West, up near the playground, would be a new restroom.
Yes, not one of the bond ones, it'll be covered by our insurance, because
Okay.
they got hit by a tree
Okay.
in a storm, not during the tropical storm, about 2 weeks before. A tree that looked like it was in great shape, turns out was rotten all the way through and snapped in half and fell directly on it. It's a little frustrating.
So we have 5 more to go, restrooms, is that what I'm getting?
Correct, yeah, we have Bonita, Mill Pond, Pioneer, McCrimmon, and Ritchie Street as well.
And
as-
it doesn't even include a mirror.
Include what?
A mirror.
Does it have a water fountain? Do we have water fountains on our?
They do not. Not the current ones. We can add that, it's just
Yeah.
an additional cost.
You know, I mean, it's just, we have, like, is it Ritchie Street that's got the basketball court with no cover on it? It's just hot as blazes.
I have 3 of those.
Yeah, we have Ritchie Street Festival and Mill Pond, all 3 have basketball courts without
The
coverage.
Ritchie Street
The
has
festival's got trees.
the playground for disability.
Correct, it's the All Abilities Playground.
So
I
that-
mean, I don't know where this idea came from, that every park has to have a bathroom. I mean,
it comes from a
it's,
lot of.
it's only relatively recently that we've even gotten bathrooms at some of these.
Yeah, but if you read much on park use and surveys of the public and research as to when parks get used, people avoid parks that, just like you said, people avoid parks that don't have restrooms. And people don't get out and aren't as active as much as they would be, that kind of thought. And that's obviously the goal of the parks, is to promote fitness and activity. And if that's keeping people from using the parks, we have to offer that in some way. I'm not saying the porta potty thing is not used, I mean, but I think we just have to find a more creative way to provide this at a lower cost. I mean, these are in, you know, I just can't believe, I know they're accurate, but I can't believe the cost of a single or double restroom. I was thinking we would just put some singles out there and maybe they're 50,
50,
maybe they're
60,
75 grand, and we just walk away.
Yeah. And I will say, these restrooms we're proposing are expensive, but all of these parks with future park restrooms listed had restrooms. They were there from the 70s and 80s, but part of the problem, the reason they got listed is that We had to tear all of them down, they were in such bad disrepair. Tommy and his guys were out there constantly fixing them, things were rotting through, plumbing wasn't working. And so we ended up with permanent park restrooms that we kept having to close, and then porta potties as well. And so the reason CNAC and the Parks Board and everybody talked about this was like, we've had park restrooms out here forever, they're just defunct and we need to tear them down, so they were torn down, so, the bond projects, the goal was to replace those things that have been there.
Of course. What does the porta potty cost?
I can get the exact numbers for you, but it's $40,000 to $50,000 a year, roughly. But we can get that, we can send it to you, because we do have a contract to rent porta potties, and then, we do have another company that we pay to come and clean them almost, for the majority of the parks, they're cleaned daily, and they're still.
So $40,000 a year, it doesn't take long to add up to, you should have built
Yeah.
one.
So the Pioneer Park, is that gonna be refurbished or
That's what we're toward.
That one's,
they're just gonna break it down? Okay.
yes, because that one, originally was gonna be paid for by a revolving loan fund project, that you could fund certain items in lower income areas. That whole funding stream kind of went away. We still have roughly $100,000 in limbo that we're trying to figure out if we can still use for parks.
How much? I'm sorry.
About 100,000.
Because didn't we use that for the playground?
We did.
Okay.
And all the people on the state level that did that program have all left. And so now the city's trying to reestablish, like, okay, who do we need to talk to? Because the fact that $100,000 is sitting in limbo, I'm gonna figure out how to get
I thought we
it.
had already locked up the restroom. I thought it was already, and then the playground went in, and we never got the restroom, and I thought, what happened there? Because it seems like it was all part of the same deal.
Yeah, and that one I'm not sure of. I don't know if it was the turnover with the state or turnover with city staff at the time, but when I walked into it, it was like, well, we have $100,000
Yeah.
that's earmarked for this, but no one could figure out the time how to spend it. So I'm working with, Larissa and Carly and I are trying to figure out with the state, how do we spend that money? Because I want to spend the money that's already designated
Yeah, it's
for it.
already set there.
So that's a potential savings we do have there.
Yeah, we could use that, or for something else we're interested in, but,
All right, we're gonna build how many bathrooms? We said, is it 5 or 6?
This would be five,
Five bathrooms at 160,000, correct?
260,000.
260.
By the time we get around to it.
So 1.3 to build them, and if we were to divide that by 50,000, because that's how much. So it'd take us 26 years basically to pay them off, and what is the life expectancies of these? 30
Our life-
years?
You what?
What's the life expectancy of a new bathroom?
Usually, anything that's done with a bond is expected to last 40 to 50 years.
Okay.
And that's the reason we pick these park restrooms, because they're built to this spec. Of course, there will be maintenance here and there. It'll have to be painted on the inside and light bulbs are replaced, things like that. But these are supposed to last 40 to 50 years with minimal maintenance throughout the
how
life
many
expectancy.
companies did you price?
For the prefab, we have three, I
Three?
think, with this. One of them is Green Flush.
Green Flush was like by far
The cheapest one.
and the best estimate
Yeah.
and the best customer service.
But yeah, we have about 3 different ones we have priced, and I can send that to you as far as.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's hard for me to not wanna go out and shop them and see if we can find a better deal, or,
Yeah, and I had also priced for a separate project from 2 other companies
Mhm.
for the concession
Yeah, we were looking at a
situation, so-
restroom concession stand at
yeah.
baseball, and that price blew my mind.
And you can't use a home builder, you have to use someone that specializes in government bathrooms?
No, so we, when we bid it out, if it's an over $50,000 project, we have to put it on the city website, on the, in the Daily Sentinel, all sorts of stuff. The company we got last time was TCMC. I don't know what they stand for, but it's TCMC. And they've built, schools, stuff for governments, they've built homes. So you can get any kind of builder as long as they have the right insurance and can buy the products.
Well, you're putting this on the website. Are you waiting for bids to come in, or are you pursuing bids?
So we send it out to, excuse me, our purchasing department has a big listserv that has several hundred contacts on it as far as different contractors. It has to be publicly posted on the city website. We have to do pre-bid meetings, bid openings, things like that. But it's put out on the website. We send it out via email. If y'all have any contractors y'all know of, we're happy to send out that email. We can't do anything that would show preference, but we,
Right.
if someone says, hey, I know of these 10 contractors, we email all 10 of them. So we do go out, but we also publicly post it, and we have quite a few contractors that are waiting with bated breath every time the city puts something out, which is good, because we always get bids.
Okay, so the tranche one playgrounds, those are already, no, that's not true. Why do we have
I
this
believe there's a big,
listed like
there's a
this?
list too that the state
For
has.
this list?
It's all
Yeah.
pre-approved.
So tranche one, we were just kind of showing, because in tranche one, we only had so much money,
But TDC,
which was
they do a good
this
job. We work
772,500.
Yeah.
And that will pay for these 3 playgrounds plus some site design / restroom design.
But that money's not spent yet, we're not committed to that yet.
It is not spent yet, but council has approved that money and those 3 projects, and we presented it to them in May. So unless council changes their decision, we've kind of started working on contracts, but the contracts have not been awarded.
Yeah, okay, so I think we probably, I don't know if y'all agree with me, but I feel like we need to figure out what parks need, well, I mean, so your argument here is that doesn't matter, the price is the same, or really close to the same, whether we build the dream toilet or the budget version, or the smaller version, but, maybe I have to get over that first, because I'm having trouble thinking that we can't save some money here.
Dumb question. When you talk about usage for the new parks, how does usage for these places that don't have bathrooms compare to usage to previous parks that didn't have it in terms of rentals and stuff like that? So when you think about Mill Pond now, it does not have a bathroom, does not have a new park. When you think about when Maroon, before it had the new bathroom go in, is usage and rentals of pavilions and stuff like that, a request for pavilions on par with each other?
Not exactly, so I can show you, we have a pavilion rental slide. We didn't go back past 2023, we certainly can. Of course, our 2020, 2021 numbers are all skewed because of COVID and things like that. So our usage has been pretty consistent, because a lot of these are family reunions that happen every year, they're big community events that happen every year, people have their birthday parties, that sort of thing. I will say the numbers, I think, are a little misleading, because Mill Pond Park has 2 pavilion rentals in 2023 and 2 so far in 2024. We know they're used more. We've heard from council members, community members that say, oh yeah, we have our family reunions out there every year. They don't rent the pavilion from us, they just go out there and use it. We tell people that it's best to rent the pavilions because we guarantee that you get that pavilion, you can have your family set up under there. If you don't rent it and you show up and someone's there, y'all are gonna have to fight it out to decide who gets to use that pavilion. So Park Pavilion is the only way we can actually track park usage numerically, but I don't think it gives a full account of how often it's used.
Well, I don't deny that, but do you have comparisons for those like Moroni and things of that nature? Because I assume Moroni's gonna have a lot more, and I also have a feeling that what we're seeing here is a couple different things occurring. Self-selection, Mill Pond Park is a place where couldn't tell this for exactly, but there's not gonna be a lot of kids in that area. My experience when I first got into this board, that was more of an older section of the town, not a lot of kids. But when you think about Mountain Parks and the other parks, bigger kids circumstances, so when we talk about use, it's gonna be there. When you see Mill Pond, even in comparison here, my guess is it's not gonna compare anything to Mountain Park before it had a bathroom. My guess is in pavilion use, and I hate to throw Montez on the bus. Anderson had a birthday out there many years ago, that's what they did too, you know what I mean, even before they had the bathrooms go, and so I can speak for us having uses, I don't know that Mill Pond, even if we put in new parks, is gonna be used, you know what I mean? And when we talk about that, we're talking about $630,000 with the estimates of the bathroom, the park, and the, parking lot, you know what I mean? That is $630,000 that could be made good use elsewhere, bringing Mill Pond back, off the back, on the very far back burn.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? And I hate to say this, throw Mill Pond out the park, because I also have the idea that I want to keep that merry-go-round going. I openly admit that it's character building.
You could always do a mill when people wanna rent. So let's say we take the bathroom off the table at Mill Pond. But if you want to rent the pavilion at Mill Pond, we will include the porta potty. And then you can have a porta potty delivered for the weekend if they pay the rent. That might be and then skip the building, and for events, when they rent, include the porta potty.
yeah, we would have to figure out on the back end how to do that. That is an option. I think what we've looked at on the park side is just a lot of this is what was in our parks master plan as far as providing basic amenities at each one of our parks. On the staff side, we have somewhat of a responsibility to make sure all of our parks have the same amount of investment. Of course, I can certainly understand the argument on if it's not used as heavy, maybe you don't have as much of an investment. But this is essentially what was presented to the CNAC committee and council had looked at and approved. If there's feedback as far as, you know, we think that $630,000 can go somewhere else, or we can have a different arrangement, like raid the pavilion and we'll throw in a porta potty or we'll arrange it. On the staff side, excuse me, these allergies are gonna kill me. We can certainly write all that up and send it to the city manager who can share it with city council. On the staff side, we're a little locked into, this is the direction council's giving us so far. But as a board, you are more than welcome to make suggestions. We can write up the minutes, send all of this to the city manager and say, here's what the Parks Board thinks on all of these items. So we can certainly do that.
Just saving that 630, you might put 2 shades over two of the other parks in each shade over the ballparks. With that 630, you just saved in one bathroom.
You brought up 630, what is that?
630 includes the bathroom, Mill Pond, the park at Mill Pond, and
The what is?
the park, bathroom,
Oh,
and
park
the,
playground?
the parking lot. So the
Oh.
playground, the bathroom, the parking lot, to a grand total of $630,000.
So you're just gonna close Mill Pond, is that the idea?
I'm not saying that, I'm saying, hold on, if I'm doing anything at Mill Pond.
What if we don't improve Mill Pond, it's gonna eventually be closed, right? I mean,
Right, but this is about determining what needs to happen first. What do we need more? In an ideal world, we'd have all of our parks looking beautiful with nice bathrooms. But we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world where several of our basketball courts don't even have covers. And they're used, so.
Yeah, would a bathroom at Mill Pond bring more people to Mill Pond than would be to put covers over one of the basketball courts? Which one would bring more to the city?
how much does that cost, the cover at a basketball court?
Don't point at me, I don't know. We can certainly look for some bids. I don't have that number offhand,
It's
because the last
around-
one we did was.
It's like 100, and I just compare this to something I saw in pickleball, to cover 2 pickleball courts with a metal cover was 150,000. So it's pretty close to the same size, so it would be around 150.
I have a concern that the quality of bathrooms that have been built recently are really not up to par, and they for a certain price, and so what are we gonna get for this expensive price? That's my concern, what the quality of this bathroom is going to be.
It's planned to be the same, I think.
The same?
Yeah, what's the?
The same
what's-
as Con?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's the plan. So what's the quality issue?
Well, I wouldn't have time to tell you.
Do you find that they're dirty a lot?
Do I find that
That they're dirty, I'm just curious.
I wouldn't say that, it's just,
They're plain
just how
Jane.
they're built and the tightness of them and the toilets, like you're right sitting at the wall, just the whole frame is like somebody didn't draw a house plan.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I taught housing for a long time, so I see it, and the mesh wire.
They're pretty you know, when they have, when you look at them from afar, they have like, you know, the cool design on the outside, but when you get inside, they're just pretty basic. I mean, and she's, like, the handicap toilet in at least in the ladies' room at Moroni, and I'm sure it's the same, is so tight against the wall, if somebody really
Right.
was handicapped, they can't use that toilet. It does not, it's
And then the
not.
whole issues that is.
My husband
that-
could not use, and he's handicapped, but there's no way he could use those
But,
handicapped
I mean,
toilets.
this is
and those bathrooms.
backtracking, so this is
But-
not like after it's done.
What were you saying, Ron?
Since I'm the one that originally questioned the bathroom at Mill Pond, I like the idea of downsizing it, because that area of town doesn't have that population. And I like her idea of putting it in the back of the priorities versus the other parks. Now, I do know this is out of the parks thing, but some of the lots over there all belong to one family. And they're about to start changing hands and be divided up, so maybe that neighborhood will come back.
Right.
'Cause that's the main problem, is the people that hold the lots aren't building houses
Right.
and the population is dropping. So I can see where, because of that, it needs to be put back, especially like Bonita Creek is a very crowded park and has no bathroom.
And,
Yes, they all need bathrooms.
but
Yeah.
Bonita Creek, and I've only been here 2 years, but as an outsider looking in, Bonita Creek should be the showcase park of Nacogdoches, just because of where it is. I mean, if anybody gets a bathroom, Bonita Creek should get that bathroom first.
$630,000 will go a long way to doing that.
Hmm?
$630,000 go a long way to doing that.
And I like your idea of trying to, thinking about covers for the pickleball. Pickleball is just turning out to be this huge,
No,
mean-
no, pickleball does not need covers in Nacogdoches. I was just using that as a reference for cost for the basketball. I play pickleball.
I am thrilled with all of the pickleball stuff going on. I mean, my kids are actually going out all the time.
Yeah,
to
I play 6
pickleball.
days a week at Moroni. Yeah, well, I don't have a life, so I play pickleball, and.
It's wonderful.
Okay.
So here's,
Go ahead.
I got something I might want to bring up here. So let's think about it. Bonita Creek Park wasn't used much until we got the dog park. Pioneer Park wasn't used much until we got disc golf. Moroni Park wasn't used much until we got pickleball. What do we need to put at Mill Creek Pond to get it being used again?
That's interesting. Maybe
That-
that's
that's
where
a-
the skate park goes or whatever. Remember you were talking about a skate
Yeah.
park?
Because those three parks, I grew up here my whole life, only left to go to school. And I remember all three of those parks weren't being used at all until those things started happening there.
What did you say, Pioneer?
Pioneer Park, the disc golf.
Disc golf.
no.
We
it's
also got
always been
a new
Pioneer.
playground at Bonita.
No, ma'am, whenever I was college and high school age, you went there to find crime and drugs. Like, we stayed away from there because it was so bad.
Before that, earlier.
Yeah, now when I was in elementary school, it was a great park. That's where we went to go play, had our school stuff there, and it was a fabulous park. It was, remember the drawbridge? The suspension bridge, yes. But then disc golf brought it back. So what do we need at these parks to bring them back to their glory that they once were? Like, what do we need to do at Mill Creek to make it?
And there's your $630,000 well spent. Use it for a skate park and a parking lot.
I'm not a big believer that we should skate around here. I'm not against the idea of putting something fun and exciting in there. I'm probably the only person on this board that was very hesitant to want to skate around park. Maybe Anderson skates and some of his friends do, I just don't.
I've
think-
used the one in Lufkin, and it seems like the reason I like the one in Lufkin is because it's open and everybody can see it. So therefore, crime is not an issue. But you do get a lot of usage, even if it's just kids playing around on their bicycles or just
There's
getting.
a lot of kids downtown. I walk downtown every night. There's a lot of kids in the parking lots of downtown in the evening on skateboards. A lot.
I mean, is it as simple as putting a fence up at Mill Pond and making a secondary dog park that's going to draw people there, and then therefore it justifies a bathroom now because it's being used.
And part of what's already in the master plan is to redo the playground at Mill Pond.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so that's already on the
Tommy,
table. So it is going to get that
Tommy, new
improvement.
Swing seats.
Hmm?
I saw that Mill Pond got 2 new seats for the swing.
That's just cause the other ones were broken.
Well, yeah.
We're gonna get a new playground there.
I've
That's
already
gonna be
seen
like
kids
Pioneer
using
and
them,
Bonita.
so, you know,
Is it already spent?
but something there
Already
will
planned?
get used.
For what?
The playground?
For Mill Pond?
Yeah.
Yes, it's one of the ones in tranche one.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so Mill Pond, the improvements planned so far actually have a whole, for Mill Pond, so currently we have a playground, a pavilion, and a basketball court. So the future plan would be, in addition to those things, with adding, the restroom, a parking lot, and a playground. And I do think, like Mr. Montez was saying, some of this is it a old rundown playground because no one likes it, or is it just because we haven't invested in it in 30 years? So some of it's the whole, if you build it, they will come. I don't know if our restroom and playground will do it, maybe a dog park addition there, and then all of a sudden it's an entire park that's been programmed, it's been brought up. You know, we do have money, in our budget going forward to repaint that basketball court, to get that looking better, because it hasn't been invested in years.
Some of these neighborhoods are scary, and I don't wanna take my kids there, and that's one of them.
I have some drugs change hands.
I don't wanna go to Mill Pond Park, I think it's creepy, and, the neighborhood's not so great.
Where exactly is the basketball court in Mill Pond?
So it's, kind of from this picture, it's on your left-hand side, right from the sign.
Is it so run down you can't really tell that it's a basketball court?
You can't really see it from the street, once
Gotcha.
you park and walk up there, because it's kind of up on a hill.
Oh, you
But-
can see it as soon as you get, as soon as you make that curve, that's the first thing you see.
Cause I'm looking at my pictures of Mill Pond, I
On
didn't
Mill
pick it up
Pond.
at all.
What?
I didn't pick it up in my pictures of Mill Pond at all, that's why I was like,
I think it's just that it's a brown dirt color right now, and I just don't think you notice it.
alright, so that. Is it down over there by the pavilion yonder?
It's just, see the ditch right there?
Yeah. That's it?
If you look left to that ditch, you'll see the basketball court.
Huh.
It's right, if you come down Jewel Street, it's right at the corner, you come down that first street. Here.
Now y'all are making me think I'm crazy, I know there's a basketball court out there. It's like, I know it, I promise it.
I think I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's in bad shape.
It's close to the road. It's so close to the road, we had to put a fence there so the ball wouldn't go out in the road.
Gotcha.
Give me the timing of these decisions. So when's the next, when will this be discussed again by the city council?
I don't have an exact date. The plan for them to sell off tranche number 2, which would include these restrooms, is in May of 2026. So I can ask them what their timeline is, because I know in order for them to sell these bonds in May of 2026, I believe they have to get our lawyer involved and give notice by the end of March. And so I assume they'll talk about that beforehand, sometime
Yeah.
in January, February, but I can get a better timeline for y'all. So it's not tomorrow, or anything like that.
So are they selling
I
bonds now?
remember seeing
On
some
tranche one?
bent over.
Tranche 1, yes. Tranche 1, those bonds have been sold, that money's in the bank, and council has told us to go forth with those couple projects. For us specifically, it's the 3 playgrounds.
Yeah.
So they have done that part, and so we can spend that money tomorrow.
Have we seen the plans for the playground?
No, we're working on design build contracts, which we've done on all the rest of the playgrounds, where we pick a company. We're looking at game time, they have competitive bidding, they're on buy board, they've done all the rest of the playgrounds here in Nacogdoches. So essentially, once our contract's done with them, we tell them we have $240,000 to spend, and then we all kind of design
Every
together.
time I've been there.
So that'll come to y'all.
That's what I was
Okay.
like.
And so at any point, you know, if we are looking at these couple parks, if y'all say we want, you know, Mill Pond or, what else we have on here? You know, if you decide McCrimmon, like, we want a space-themed playground, we can go ahead and start looking at that, you know, with game time and things like that. Or if it's, you know, we need to have a big kid park, little kid park, 2 separate areas, we can start looking at those, but essentially we'll do a contract with game time, tell them here's our budget, and then bring it back to y'all, say, what theme do we want, and they'll give us, you know, 5 to 10 options to look at.
Speaking of playgrounds, Maroni,
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, that was a good segue. So Maroni, we found out, is fully covered by insurance for the repairs. We finally found a contractor that will help us, work on it. The problem we were having is that we were bidding out, fixing that burn section, and I was getting bids that were $200,000, $100,000, $30,000. We were comparing apples and oranges and grapefruits. So we're gonna do a design build contract with Cox Jones Contractors here in town, where they've kind of said, we can repair this whole section for whatever you design for $50,000, not to exceed $50,000. Be fully covered by our insurance, so that should be on the September 10th city council agenda. Once they approve that, we'll come back to y'all in our October meeting with, you know, 10 different options, and y'all say we want this, this, and this, and they'll start building.
you know the 1-year anniversary is coming up there in September.
And it'll be a perfect time to finally get this contract awarded. It took a while with insurance, figuring out if we even could rebuild a wooden playground, cause those aren't really, allowed in a lot of places anymore. But once we get that contract done, essentially Cox will say, you know, here is 15 different things we could do in this area, pick 5 of them, and we'll bring them to y'all, and once we pick those 5, they'll start building. We're gonna try to recreate some of what was there, because there's still some items standing that we need to be able to get kids down
Yeah.
off of some of these things. But then there's a bigger area where it used to be that little car on the tires. They don't really recommend tires in your playgrounds anymore because they burn, which we found out. So we'll be coming up with some new thing to put right where that little vehicle was, and then we'll lead into the rest of the playground. So that's coming up pretty soon, and that's fully covered by insurance. So we're very excited about that one.
So it seems to me that, CNAC felt like every park needed a restroom. And I guess the city council obviously feels the same way. Are we saying, cause I mean, I still feel like we should have a small restroom. I don't know about a portable, but a small restroom in every park where there's at least a playground. And if you took the costs out of it for just a second, I know you can't do that, but if you took the costs out of it for just a second, principally, do you guys agree with that? I know not all of you do, but I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how y'all feel about that.
I think that in a lot of areas, those bathrooms are used for drugs and God knows what. So yeah, I'm not in agreement. But the good thing is, it looks like we don't have to make this decision for 2 years. So we have like a good year to be able to watch and see how the bathrooms that were just put in, all these new bathrooms, how they hold up. Or what are they being used for? Are they being damaged? Are they being kept clean? And then,
I'd rather spend the time finding an alternative, like maybe there is a contractor out there that we can get them done well for less, you know,
I mean,
I don't.
What happened to I mean, and it's like, I know it's not the most attractive, but it can be painted attractive. The cinder block building that would have a handicap stall, a urinal,
Yeah,
and a sink,
that's
and
what we
it's
have in a
unisex.
yeah, really.
And it's
What we grew up with.
unisex. I mean, just the stall
Yeah.
that, it's one stall,
what we've
but
had
it's
here.
access for handicap, a
Um,
urinal, and a
Yeah.
sink.
I think the ones we had weren't they the corrugated metal on the outside?
Ones we had were metal, that's why we took them all down. And all of these parks were suggesting put bathrooms back in had bathrooms. We just tore them down because they were they
But,
were
you know, for
deteriorated.
Mill Pond, which, you know, I don't live over there, so I don't know, but everybody's saying that it doesn't get any use. A handicap, a urinal, and a sink, and cinder block. Why would that be, I mean,
Yeah,
how much could that
This
cost?
picture,
I mean, 100,000?
Yeah, and that's something, the one price we didn't have on here
190.
was,
right.
excuse me, yeah, that one price we didn't have on here was, we reached out to Army Curtis, who designed the ones we just put in, to say like, okay, what would it cost for us to scale all of this down, do something smaller, because of course, at some point, like, you can have a builder build it, but someone has to design it, so those costs have to come somewhere. So we'd asked Army what it would cost to scale it down, that's the number we're waiting on. So I think that may give us more things to discuss at our next meeting. You know, if it'll cost $15,000 to redesign it, and then our estimate when you bid it out is $100,000, great. We just didn't have that number available,
Yeah.
for this meeting.
I'm in the process of building a barndominium. It's gonna cost me about $250,000 to build a 3-bedroom barndominium.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I mean,
Does it have a restroom?
we got 2 restrooms, yes.
Right, I definitely think maybe some contractors could be called that maybe don't necessarily always work with the government. Cause as soon as you get the government involved, I mean, boom, everything's double. Your price is quoted or double, it's just crazy.
Okay, so let's spend a little time thinking outside the box. I mean, when you're not here, somewhere else. And if you can come up with some ideas or other sources for a less expensive alternatives, cinder block, whatever. I think we should pursue those independently and then bring the ideas to the city and say, hey, we could save, I mean, cause I would love to be able to save half the money or something like that and then use it on the trails or on, you know, other things.
Shade.
Yeah. I'm hoping we don't have to spend all that money on restrooms, so I agree with you there. I just, still feel that we need to have a restroom in each park, me personally. We don't have to decide that today. Like you said, we have a couple years.
We still need 100 bathroom, and I agree with Michael with this.
What? You agree with Michael?
I do.
I got lots of ideas.
He is an idea machine.
I don't deny with the basic idea of having a bathroom in these places and people are using them. So Michael's point is, what do we put first? The bathrooms first, or do we put the actual use and getting people
Right.
there before we do it? Because-
Or is it what we can get budgeted for?
And that's what I would say, if we're talking about Mill Pond, you know, hold another disc golf course, you know what I mean? You've had a very strong agenda of pushing disc golf, which I'm not against, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Michael's had an agenda of trying to get the dog park, which I'm not against either. Can Mill Pond Park hold these items? So if we were to get rid of the basketball court in its entirety, could a dog park go in there? Could we find the room there to do a disc golf thing, you know what I mean? And start getting
It'd be a very small golf course.
No, it actually goes back, the park goes
Yeah,
back.
the park's
and-
actually pretty
It's
big.
actually
You
pretty
just
big. You just don't,
No,
you can't see it.
Actually, I'm
Yeah.
really familiar, I've actually gone down.
Oh,
and
yeah,
walked through
okay.
it. Okay, cause part of that back part
Yeah.
is marsh.
Oh, okay. See, I
Okay,
haven't
it's
walked.
what used to be pond bottom.
I
Yeah,
got you.
you have to
I
put
got
your
you.
waders on to go out there and disc golf there.
Yeah.
As long as you mow it, we'll be okay.
And we can certainly look at, like you mentioned, what else could go over there, because there is some funding, separate funding outside of the bond, that we've been raising for a couple of years for a new dog park. I need to see how much is in there, because of course we do the, what's it called, the Blueberry Dog Run every year at Blueberry Festival. And so all those proceeds go into a separate account that right now we've been socking away, because, you know, we make a good $8,000 a year, which is great, but it's not gonna put in a new dog park, so we've been saving that. So I can certainly see how much is in there to see if it, because really dog parks, I mean, other than you usually do like little doggy water fountains and stuff, a lot of that upfront cost is just fencing. So I can see how much we currently have in there, cause there may be a spot for a dog park over there. It'd just be a real hilly one, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, it's easy energy,
Yeah.
exercise.
To run up and down.
It is.
So we can certainly look at how much is in there and see if that is an option.
But do you think people are gonna actually go from Maroni to Mill Pond to use the dog park? The area to area?
They showed up at Bonita Creek, north, whenever they built it. I mean, people came out of the woodworks. That park wasn't being used much at all, from my noticing throughout living here for a long time. I remember that you drive by there and nobody would be at that park. Put that dog park there, boom, that park's being used all the time. Of course, that was before the pickleball courts were there.
You know, nobody, that's just a Saturday thing.
It made a difference at that park, from what I've noticed throughout the years.
And we get a fair number of calls about, and it's usually around the dog run time when they're like, okay, when's the next dog park coming? And we've told them so far, like, well, right now we're saving the money to make sure we have enough to put up fencing and fully install one, and we're looking for a site. So there have been calls about it. I don't know if that's the exact right fit for Mill Pond, but we can certainly look at it, especially if there's funding there to use.
I think with, next agenda, we do wanna, list what projects we feel like are important to us outside of talking about restrooms. Because, if we do save dollars, or if we need to start planning these types of things, we need to create a list of those projects. And that's why I had the city attach the 5-year plan, or however long the plan is, of projects that were approved way back in the master planning, so that you guys, you've seen it before, but, we need to figure out which one of those are important to us and start promoting them. Back to, real quick, the idea that we not do a restroom, but do a playground first, or that kind of thing, I think could be worked out, but I do think we'll be in a little bit of an uphill battle, because CNAC has already put us on the agenda, and the council's already thinking along the lines of doing those things. But if we make recommendations that are contrary, that's fine, but just something else to think about. Okay, so if you come up with some creative ideas on the restrooms, cheaper ways of doing them, even if it's park specific, let's float those ideas to the city. Go out and visit the parks, go out to Mill Pond, go out to the parks we're talking about, and, look at it and see, think it through. Maybe we should meet in one of them sometime, or, just to kind of mix it up and see what we're talking about. I think that could be fun. And, we have more time than I expected as far as I thought we had to get something done, that's why we were meeting today, but,
No, and I'll get a better, time frame for y'all as far as when city council will actually start discussing selling off tranche number 2, which includes
Okay.
the restrooms, but it should be after the first of the year.
all right. So, any other agenda points you guys wanna see, or is this, we're just gonna follow this vein for a while so we can get this figured out? Any thoughts? I don't feel like we've gotten very far today, I'm a little disappointed, so. At least I've heard how everybody feels.
Well, we never get as much done as we want.
This is true. This is true. So any other agenda points that you wanna see next time? I want us to revisit this whole subject. Any proposed ideas for cost savings? Do you have any sense of how the city, I don't know if this is outside of our agenda, but do you have any sense of how the council's viewing this? Are they just planning on following CNAC through and through?
As of right now, the projects we presented, we've heard some pushback from a few council members about Mill Pond investment. We've heard pushback the other direction from the council members, or the council member that is over that board saying, well, Mill Pond looks this way because we haven't invested in 30 years. So
Yeah.
we've heard both things. So none of the arguments are new. We've heard both things as far as Mill Pond's smaller, doesn't need the same caliber of investment, but we've also heard we haven't invested, so we need to do it to bring it up to the rest of the parks.
And the playground would be an investment of
Correct.
a significant amount, right?
It's a lot of money.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what we've heard so far.
I would like to inquire about something else that is, I guess is fixing to take place. Going to bi-monthly meetings,
Yes.
just out of curiosity. We don't always make quorum every month. What happens if whenever you miss bi-monthly quorum? Then you're 4 months out.
Well, I mean, I think that's fair enough, but, I mean, so why not meet daily? I mean, it's just, we have to have business to do, and, I feel like our agendas have been a bit hollow. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but I just, I'm happy to meet more often if the committee wants to meet that often, but I'm thinking that, what we need to get done can be done in a bi-monthly fashion. If there's more to do, then we need to meet more often.
If you meet quorum.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair enough, but I can't control whether people attend or don't attend, but I mean,
Well, and if something comes up, can't we say, okay,
yes,
this is happening, so
okay.
we're gonna have another meeting in between because.
Yeah, that's true, if we
Oh,
can make
okay.
that, yeah, that's a good point. That's
Yeah.
a good point. I mean, do y'all feel like, that, bi-monthly's not enough?
Because like you said, we can always meet again.
Yeah. Everybody okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when's the next meeting?
So our next meeting will move, since we're doing the bi-monthly, will be October 28th. This is the fourth Monday, right? Yes.
What's that going on?
Yeah, so October 28th at 4 PM, right back here.
I think there's a good chance I won't be here on that day. But that doesn't mean y'all can't.
So
Okay.
on October 28th, we'll have some start of some ideas of choosing playgrounds.
Yes, we'll have the Maroni Playground possible designs on the agenda for y'all.
And then these other 3 playgrounds.
We should have design build contracts executed by then. A lot of these things, it kind of depends on how heavy the council agenda is. But we should have, those design build contracts done in September. And so by your October meeting, we should at least be able to start brainstorming, kind of deciding, what size playgrounds, what age ranges we're looking for. If you have certain themes in mind, we can start doing that in October as well.
Is there any study that happens in the particular neighborhoods of, like, age groups? Like this neighborhood is heavy in the teens and the population is aging, so there aren't gonna be that many little kids just that, the demographics of the neighborhood as far as,
We can certainly try to pull those
Children
for
ages.
you.
Cause I mean, Pecan was kind of focused on younger kids and,
Yes.
and Pioneer seems to be oriented towards older
Mhm.
kids. So I think that's a good point. I don't know how we decide which park gets what, or are there parks where they cover all ages? That's a good question.
Well,
And we can certainly pull what
Hey,
age
Sherry.
ranges these playgrounds were originally, like the current playgrounds we have. We can certainly pull like what age ranges these are recommended for as far as the ones that are existing and the ones we've recently put in at different parks to see if there's any age gaps we're missing. We've tried to, Ritchie was an all abilities park, almost 100% because it was a big flat area. And we needed that for the port in place, so that just kind of fit. So we can certainly bring all the information we have on existing playgrounds, and then maybe we can all decide, hey, we're missing one for this age range, or we don't have one with big climbing elements, or things like that. And I can see what we can find for the neighborhoods.
I think it would be cool to think about, because we once had a plan for a more natural, playground that wasn't big plastic
Mhm.
towers, but was more climbing and jumping and logs and rocks and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. I would love to see something like that at Lake Mac West,
Mhm.
where people are out at the lake to have a playground that's a little more naturalistic. So when we're thinking that through, I'd like to at least consider, I don't know how much more it costs to do that. I'm sure it costs money, but.
Yeah, like I saw one in Frisco, it was a bike riding park
Huh.
for like little kids, for like toddler age, like training wheels, where it was actually a park bench in the middle where mom could sit or dad, and then there was a winding little bike trail around that was probably about twice the size of this room. It was a little neat park, and it was a little pocket park. It was probably twice the size of this room, so pretty small for a park.
So these playgrounds have not been designed yet,
No.
so it's another place for us to have input. And so you guys, if you have ideas like that, be sure to pass them along to the city. They will consider them, and then when we see them come back to us, we can decide if it was a good idea or not, right?
Yeah, and especially if you have like ones that you saw that you're like, hey, this would be
Yeah,
really
some
cool.
pictures.
Send us some pictures, links to their website, other cities you've seen that you like, how their parks look, if it's a natural playscape, send us those and we can
Yeah.
start kind of running those things down. Cause that 240 we just based on what our most recent playgrounds have cost.
Yeah,
And so we just kind of go from there. Game Time, who we select, also usually does a matching grant. So if we do 240, they may throw in another 100 to 200,000, so we make it more. They basically told us just fill out the paperwork each time, and I think we've got it on all the rest of them. So we may be able to do a little bit more, but that is the
Yeah.
city's contribution.
so that's definitely something we should be talking about next meeting,
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, because it would be great to have a playground with enough that covers the 2-year-old and the 10-year-old.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
that they'd have, yeah.
And there's some cities
Which
that
just
put
takes
in.
a lot of money.
Yeah, and there's some cities that put in the playgrounds where it's like you have the little kids playing right here, and then the older kids are playing nearby, so the parents can watch both their
Oh.
children, but the two playscapes don't actually connect to each other, so you don't
Yeah.
have the big kids running over the
Yeah.
little kiddos. So we've seen those two; they're pretty neat.
Yeah.
Mike?
When it comes to bathrooms, where does the baseball fields part come on the list of needing?
So the baseball complex actually got a donor that's going to pay for the renovation of their restroom and concession stand.
Okay, so that did go through?
Yes.
Awesome.
They are working on that right now. I don't think they have a finalized design, because that has to come back to the city and the city manager to sign off on it, since it's city property, but they have exclusive use of it. But they did get a donor to cover that, so we're pretty excited. And then
So good
SFA
news.
baseball is about to make quite a bit of investment out there as well. They're looking at doing essentially the softball restroom. They're looking at redoing that, redoing their little field house. And they're also trying to work with youth baseball on concession sales, so that way they can pour into youth baseball. So if everything aligns like it's looking like it should, we could have a lot of really good investment out there here pretty soon.
So SFA is not moving to SFA.
Not today.
That, like I told you, that was the one on campus.
college level, field right next to each other is pretty rare. You don't see that in a lot of places. So it wouldn't surprise me if they move eventually. They're just not moving today.
And I know 2 years ago, they had a donor common, wanted to do where the intramural fields are, put a hotel in there on one side of the softball field, on the other side of the baseball field, but under Scott Gordon's genius self, he was like, no, we don't want this. It was gonna be privately funded.
Oh, goodness.
So college baseball is changing. They're changing the number of players that they're allowing on the rosters. But time will tell if that's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing for SFA.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's gonna happen in the future.
So they're going from 40 players right now to 11.5 scholarships to 35 full scholarships currently is what the new rules are going to be.
Mhm. So it's either gonna be really bad or really good, or somewhere in between, or,
And that may be why they're not moving today, and kind of said, we're gonna do some investment, and they're especially very excited that youth baseball, is doing some investment as well, so I think they're all gonna work together, and we'll have a nice little rehab facility out there that, in theory, is not gonna cost me any money, or at least not very much. I mean, we still have to do our part. We're looking at doing a new entrance, new signage, you know, kind of sprucing the place up, but we're gonna have a lot of private investment and SFA investment, so that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. All right, I'll see you guys in October, at 4 o'clock. Thank you for your input.
everyone, do research into bathrooms, cause I found a lot of interesting stuff as I was sitting here listening, so everyone do some research. I think you'll be surprised on what you find.